Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to uncover a pretty fascinating truth about business strategy, why relying purely on financial metrics consistently fails to predict the future, and how a revolutionary framework, the balanced scorecard, fixes this entirely. If you've ever wondered how top-tier organizations systematically build real loyalty rather than just, counting past profits, you're in exactly the right place.
So let's kick things off with a massive question. What actually happens when a company focuses only on past profits instead of its operational drivers? Well, we see it happen all the time. A company will boast about record-breaking quarterly earnings only to completely collapse a year later. It turns out, relying strictly on traditional financial statements is kind of like trying to drive a car by only looking in the rearview mirror. Sure, it shows you exactly where you've been, but it gives you absolutely no indication of the cliff you might be driving toward.
Recognizing this exact trap, the framework's creators, Dr. Robert Kaplan and Dr. David Norton, noted back in the early 90s that tracking only lagging indicators like sales and outlays is completely inadequate for creating long-term value. Information-age companies have to cultivate future value. Treating critical drivers like employee training and customer satisfaction merely as short-term expenses to be minimized? Yeah, that's a one-way ticket to strategic failure. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start by looking beyond the balance sheet. Then we'll break down the 4 scorecard pillars. After that, we're zooming in on the customer perspective, measuring the customer experience, and finally looking at some real-world customer scorecards. All right, Section 1, Beyond the Balance Sheet.
This perfectly captures the core difference we need to understand. Financial metrics, things like budgeting, returns on capital, and tracking variations, they tell you the results of actions already taken. They're the ultimate outcome measures. But customer-focused metrics, those act as leading indicators of future growth. If you're tracking accessibility, consumer satisfaction, and brand loyalty today, you are actively measuring the specific drivers of tomorrow's financial performance.
Moving on to Section 2, the 4 scorecard pillars.
Now, what's really brilliant about this framework is how these 4 interconnected perspectives give executives a fast, comprehensive view of the entire business. Kaplan and Norton designed this not just as a measurement system, but as a holistic management system. It literally translates a company's high-level vision right down into tangible, actionable metrics.
It's kind of like a table with 4 incredibly sturdy legs. The financial perspective asks, how do we look to shareholders? The customer perspective asks, how do customers see us? The internal process perspective asks, what must we excel at internally to actually satisfy those customers? And finally, the learning and growth perspective asks, can we continue to improve our culture and knowledge? By balancing financial data with customer feedback, internal gap reduction, and employee training, a strategy becomes dynamic and fully adaptable.
Okay, Section 3. We are zooming in on the customer perspective. How do customers see us? That is the absolutely vital, guiding question of this perspective, and answering it requires a fundamental shift in mindset. You really have to take your eyes off the internal spreadsheets, the budgeting variations, and manufacturing cycle times, and look squarely at the external forces that are actually opening their wallets and buying the product. So the whole point here is formally measuring how well your organization's value proposition satisfies its target customer groups. It's all about evaluating performance by gathering direct client feedback on standard, cost, and accessibility. You're explicitly defining the value proposition that's going to command a premium or drive your market share.
Section 4. Measuring the customer experience.
So how do we actually track this? Well, companies measure everything from overall market share and product quality to some highly specific, really clever operational metrics. For example, some companies lean heavily on the American Customer Satisfaction Index because high scores there genuinely correlate with better stock returns and cash flow. Or look at Oracle. They have this incredibly unique metric. They actively track the ratio of quarterly sales divided by customer service requests alongside the total number of hours their technicians spend on the phone. It's a brilliant way to mathematically quantify customer friction.
And hey, if you're thinking these are just soft metrics, definitely think again. The bonus plan at Xerox allows for a massive 40% annual bonus based strictly on achieving high customer satisfaction. Tying direct, heavy financial incentives to a non-financial metric proves exactly how seriously modern businesses take this scorecard pillar. It's for sure not just a nice-to-have. It's a financial imperative.
Let's wrap things up with Section 5, Real-World Customer Scorecards. Let's look at how this plays out for a craft brewery. Their overarching objective here is to maintain a high average customer rating. But how do they measure it? Well, their goal is to increase the value of each purchase by 15% on average. And the specific initiative to drive that behavior is improving the product mix and creating highly attractive, actionable combo deals. It beautifully links a customer desire directly to a revenue driver.
Now, flip over to a jewelry store. The application looks totally different, but the logic is exactly the same. Their customer objective is simply to have a more attractive store. That measurable goal translates into a 20% increase in average daily visits. The initiative? Investing directly in window jewelry displays and social media outreach. They're literally measuring the customer's visual satisfaction by the foot traffic it generates. And for an e-commerce business, the customer perspective shifts heavily towards product availability. Their objective is to be a reference for a massive variety of products. The goal is a 15% increase in launching new products every single quarter. To make that happen, they're creating an internal innovation and development committee. You can clearly see how the customer's demand for variety reaches deep into the company's internal learning and business processes.
Probably one of the most stunning recent examples of this causal link is Walmart's strategy during the pandemic. When COVID-19 hit in January 2020, they focused strictly on customer safety and accessibility, immediately rolling out strict CDC cleaning and social distancing protocols. By prioritizing that specific customer perspective, they drove an insane 460% spike in grocery app downloads by April 2020, and that ultimately resulted in massive market share gains and a 6% increase in U.S. comparable sales a year later. But we do have to look at the other side of the coin. Researchers heavily warn that simply improving customer perspectives, like just boosting satisfaction scores, doesn't automatically guarantee financial success. Why? Because highly satisfied customers might still jump ship and buy from a competitor if the price is better. Organizations frequently drop the ball when they don't establish strict, causal relationships connecting these non-financial customer metrics directly to the bottom line. Every single initiative has to logically flow into the next. So, as you reflect on the incredible power of the balanced scorecard, I want to leave you with this to chew on. Ask yourself, is your organization actively building a strategy for the future by deeply understanding your customer's experience? Or are you just tallying up the coins from the past? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep looking forward.